In the Aaron Swartz case, let me give you a sense of perspective. A kid kills himself at the age of 26 because the federal government is going after him. He could serve up to 50 years in prison for nonsense charges, things that are at most a violation of copyright law and a violation of terms of service, but should not be criminal, let alone a felony. Did you know that assaulting a Supreme Court justice, a very serious crime, could get you up to 1 year in prison? Wow. If you assault them with a dangerous weapon, it can get you a maximum of 10 years in prison. Cabinet secretaries, members of Congress, same law. So, if you go after a Supreme Court justice or the Attorney General of the United States with a weapon, you can get up to 10 years. Aaron Swartz was facing 50 years. Now, I know it's multiple counts, but this is the trick that they always do. Oh, well, that one time that I think you were hacking in, that's a count. And the other time that was like 3.5 minutes later, that's another count, and that's another count. And we add all these together and we get 50 years. Why? We want to intimidate you, we want to bully you, we want to pressure you, we want to break you. Because you do not bend to our power. If you do not bend to our power, we will break you. All right, number two, threatening the president. My God, that's really serious, right? They can get up to 5 years in prison. 5 years in prison for threatening the president. 50 years for violating the terms of service in a contract you have with a private organization. Because it's not like they work for us. They work for the corporations, right? But in this case, it's mental because JSTOR didn't even want a criminal charges or civil charges against Aaron. All right. Knowingly spreading AIDS. People get killed that way, right? Maximum of 10 years in prison. Well, come on. Selling child pornography, right? That's got to be much worse. Yeah, well, it is worse. Maximum of 20 years in prison. 50 years for Aaron Swartz, possibly. Bank robbery, 20 years. Armed bank robbery, endangering others, maximum of 25 years in prison. You go to a bank with a shotgun, you get 25 years in prison. You go possibly hack in, it's not even hacking in, it's not fair because he had a contract with them. He didn't break into their system. He was already in their system. You violate the terms of service for this private contract that you have 50 years he was facing. They had already bankrupted him with all the money that had gone towards the case. Do you know that there is a crime called selling slaves? It's true, and it happens actually. There's sex slaves that are unfortunately kidnapped, brought into sex slavery, etc. Selling slaves, just that act, maximum of 20 years in prison. Aaron Swartz facing 50 years in prison. Helping terrorists develop a nuclear weapon. Well, that's got to be more, right? Wrong. 20 years in prison. 20 years in prison for helping Al-Qaeda develop a nuclear weapon. But what Aaron Swartz did, face up to 50 years in prison. You know what's criminal? What our government is doing to its citizens. That's what's criminal. And by the way, one of the things that he was charged with was wire fraud. You know who was not charged with wire fraud? HSBC, which did wire fraud, money laundering, which the government says they did, with the largest drug cartels in the world, and with Al-Qaeda, and with Iran. For that, they faced a fine, but the prosecution, the Justice Department, that's so concerned about Aaron Swartz, came out and said, oh, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do if we prosecuted any of those banking executives. It might endanger the bank, which might endanger the global economy. So you can do wire fraud with the largest drug cartels and terrorists in the world. But don't you dare violate a term of service with a private corporation, because then the government will come to get you, because you are dangerous. You are a danger to them because you have something they do not have. You can actually access information they do not want you to access, because you have a skill that they have not been able to neutralize yet. So they try to neutralize you through the laws. What our Justice Department did to Aaron Swartz is sickening, it is grotesque, and now he is dead, at least partly because of it, and I would say largely because of it. I hope they're proud.